All right, I'm here to start some more Tim Talks. Welcome very much to these talks. I'm always amazed that people want to listen. It's such an honor, and I don't take it lightly. So let's get right into it. So I asked some people to make some requests on talks to do, and one was keeps coming up is people wanted me to start talking a little bit about a part of my past when I used to work with chimpanzees and elephants and tigers and lions and many, many other exotic animals. It almost seems like another lifetime. I'm now 67, and it was in my 20s. I started doing that at 20 and through my 20s. And I think back on that time, and it really was beyond extraordinary, the opportunity that I had. And it really, I've had a wonderful life, and I look at that time though, with those animals, it brings tears to my eyes. It was an extraordinary time, and the honor of being able to work with those animals was so incredible that all these years later, literally almost like 45 or more years later, it still is the highlight of my life. And I've had so many highlights. And that's not to take away from anything else. It was just one of those moments. You know, if you look at your own life, you think about this. There's times, whether it's a moment, whether it's a day, whether it's a week, whether it's a year or more, where your life seems to move into an extraordinary place. And before you will often lay the most extraordinary options, the most wonderful things for you to be involved in making the world a better place and to bring joy to your life and to some other being's life or something, you know, meaningful work, meaningful moments, meaningful things happening. And part of your challenge in life, and it's my challenge too, is to be able to identify those things, either when they're coming or while they're happening, and get the most out of them. Milk them, if you will. I mean, give them life. Give them your energy, your love, your intelligence, your work ethic, commitment to give it your best. And hopefully they'll grow in your life and become beyond extraordinary. And often they will shape your life. They'll lead you down paths that you could never have imagined you would have gone down. So many of those times, those moments in our lives are, we pass them by, we forget about them, we don't acknowledge them, we don't pay attention, and we lose our moment. So think about that. And even for me, going back now to when in my early 20s, when I worked with these animals, I knew something was special. So let me just start out, and this will probably be a few Tim Talks. When I'd come out of, when I was like in my late teens, I'd finished high school. I'd gone to the Canadian wilderness, which you might already know, as I wrote about that in my book, Growing Up with a Soul Full of Nature, and I think I've done Tim Talks on it. I went to the Canadian wilderness for a number of months for an extended vision quest and a wilderness trip, and to find and spend time with bears and wolves. And when I came out, I didn't know what I was going to do. I couldn't afford to go to college back then. I thought about it. And I'm driving down Highway 5, which had just been built actually. And I'm coming through Oregon, and I stopped to visit a friend, and I get a job there with him, cutting firewood in the wilderness and building trails for the BLM. So that was great. I did that for a chunk of time. I'd go into the wilderness and repair and build trails, and I'd cut firewood and sell it from down trees. And it was in a place called Sunny Valley, Oregon. I loved it there. And I'm there working, and I'm going, what's my next step? What's my next step? You know, I just had this monstrous vision quest in Canada. And I was clear. I knew I wanted to do meaningful work in my life that made a difference in the world. I knew that I wanted to work outside in my life, almost always outside. And I knew that it had to be something that I loved and that would challenge me to keep growing and be a better person and do better skills-wise with whatever it was. And many other things too. I knew that I wanted to work with good people who were kind and generous and caring and loving, and I would of course give that back in return. So I'm thinking about that. I'm spending time thinking about it, and I get a call from an old friend from high school, and John Racanelli, and John says, "Tim, I'm working at a place called Marine World Africa USA, and it's down in Redwood City on the bay, San Francisco Bay, and I'm working. It's a sea mammal animal park, and I'm working," he said, "with whales and dolphins and fish," and he was the person who would dive into the tanks, the giant aquariums, and clean everything and take care of it, feeding all the animals and so forth. He was the keeper, the caretaker of the animals. And he said, "They got elephants and chimps and tigers and lions and things here. They always need help. Why don't you come and get a summer job?" I thought, well, God, I loved animals. I mean, I grew up my whole life working with farm animals, with dogs, with cats, rescuing animals. I knew animals were a big part of my life. And in fact, I knew that I wanted to work with animals all my life too, in somehow or way or another. So this call seemed meant to be, spirit-driven. And I said, I will check it out. So I called Marine World, I applied, I got the job, and boom, back down to the Bay Area I went for a job that was literally going to set the stage for the rest of my life. So here I am. I come to Marine World Africa USA, and the first day I get there, I'm given the job as to help the elephant trainer and to help and assist the chimpanzee trainer and to help the keepers feed all the big cats and the birds and all the other animals that lived at the park. There was birds of prey, you name it, there's everything in that place. Now, just a quick note. I know that there's been a lot of controversy over the years about animals in captivity, their care, and doing in circus type shows where animals are dressed like humans and going out into the and doing shows to entertain people, and it has not, through the years, it's become less attractive socially and not considered okay. And in general, I agree with that. And now you'll see most animal parks that had whales or dolphins have closed. It's not allowed anymore. I agree with that. And most animal parks and circuses have also closed where they do entertainment with animals. And I generally agree with that. Although I don't think it's black and white. There are exceptions. And I think one exception was me at that time. And it's easy to say, I understand, but for one thing, I was young. I didn't know all the politics around it and the ins and outs of that. I was just a kid who had an opportunity before me to work with elephants and chimps. So I just wanted to say that. I'm also a huge believer in the animal rights movement. I fight hard for farm animals and animals in zoos and parks to be cared for well. And I'm also, I'll just back up a little, I'm very skeptical of many zoos, which I think are more like prisons for animals, and they should be changed. They're not allowed to do that way. But there are some extraordinary zoos, private and government run, which help animals to breed with the hope of them someday being released back in the wild when we save enough land where animals can be safe. And the hope is that these animals, if they're taken well care of and live and have quality lives, can become great ambassadors for nature to entice and excite people to go out and join animal organizations, donate money, donate time to help make the world a better place for animals. Which my plug is, more than anything, land, wild land, wild land. And so I wanted to add that to this conversation. So I get to Marine World. It's like, what am I going to do? I got this English trainer from Ringling Brothers, Barnum and Bailey Circus, who is like crazy. Nice guy, but I'm talking wild, crazy human. And he's the elephant trainer. And the first thing he says to me, all right, there's 7 elephants. There's Sam, the big male. There's Margie, the female, giant female. There's Mataidi, the African female. And Sam was the African male. Margie was the Indian elephant female. And then there were many others that would kind of come and go. And he shows me the elephant barn, and he says, the first thing you got to do is get accepted by the elephants. And I said, what does that mean? He says, well, you got to go in there and hopefully they won't kill you. And if they do, you got to fight back. They're dominant animals. They have a hierarchy, and they're going to test you. So I go in, and I go up to Sam, who's about 14 feet at the shoulders, and I'm 6. You can imagine, twice my height or more. And he's the big male, and I walk up to him to pet him, and he takes me and throws me with his tusk about 10 feet into the plywood wall, and I am hurting. So I remember the guy saying, you got to go after him. How do you go after an elephant that big, right? I'm not that way anyway. I don't want to hurt animals. So I just ran after him with the rake. I had a rake, and I jammed it accidentally. It hit his eye, and he screamed. And I felt so bad. And I thought I was going to die at that moment, because he could have simply crushed me. But he calmed down. His eye got better. It was just like if you get an eye poke. And he looked at me, and we just knew we were going to be okay. And I gave him a big old hug. And literally, guys, I want you to know, I was there for probably 5 years, maybe. And many, many, many nights I would go into the elephant barn and lay down next to him and sleep with him, Sam. And this is an animal that's, oh God, I don't know, 8,000 pounds, or more. And I never felt unsafe. It was extraordinary. Some of the greatest times of my life were working with these animals. And some of the greatest of all was literally going into the elephant barn in the morning. And there's so much elephant poop. My job was to clean it. And I'd dance and I'd joust with the elephants and I'd play with them and I'd fill wheelbarrows full of elephant poop until I got it all out of there. And then I'd put fresh straw in and they'd roll in it. And then I got to take them all for walks all over the park. In the back veld area, we called it. It was a wild area along San Francisco Bay. And I'd always ride all of them all the time, all I wanted. I'd lay with them, hang out with them. They were my best friends. Fed them incredible apples, incredible breads, incredible hay, incredible all kinds of neat, extra beautiful kinds of fruits and vegetables that would come in. I'd set up deals with different local produce people to give us all their leftover stuff. I mean, it was such a life. And the same thing with the chimpanzees. I also met the chimp trainer, and he told me, break in with the chimps. You got to go in and be with them. I would take a crazy elephant any day to a crazy chimp. When a full-on male chimp that's about 160 pounds and about 10 times the strength of a man and 7 times the coordination decides to come at you, it is terrifying. Often the only way you stop them is to bluff them. But again, chimps, very much a hierarchical society like human beings, and they're always testing each other, and you have to be taken in by them. You have to fit in with the group. And once you're in, you're in. I mean, you are like a blood brother. And I remember the big male Raffles, his name was Raffles. He loved me from day one. Never tried to hurt me. And he became my go-to guy. In fact, I don't think I've ever loved another being as much as him. I love so many people, and my marriage and so forth, just beyond words. But there was something between him and I, Raffles and I. And it was just such a pleasure to be together. And I got in with him, and then he would help me with the other chimps. And I had 7 chimps, sometimes as many as 9, and we'd climb the trees in the park. We'd run around. I do all my animal keeping, caretaking duties, feeding and cleaning. I bring the chimps with me. I take them home at night. Literally, it was so fun. I'd take them home and they'd live in the house with me, and it was an amazing thing. So there's so much more to say about this, but the point of it was, when these moments happen in life, identify them, give them energy, give them medicine, bring them alive in your life, nurture them. It's like watering a plant, and watch them unfold, and be aware as you go. How are they being a part of my life? How are they affecting my life? How can I keep this thing going? How can I do it better or different? Be an active participant in your life and the creation of it. And these magical, amazing things will come your way. I'm going to talk more in future Tim Talks on this. I know I just scratched the surface. But thank you for listening, Hope. I started these talks, and I still believe they're mostly for our alumni and future students, people who are interested in coming to our school, to continue with the teachings of the school, or to be introduced to the teachings of the school, which, if I had to break it down, it would be to build a deep personal relationship with nature, reclaim our birthright to be close to our earth in a personal way, and a call to action, a willingness to take on the idea of becoming an earth caretaker as one of the purposes, if not the main purpose, of our life on earth. That's what these talks are about. I hope they inspire people, and I'd love to hear from you on ideas for talks you might like to hear, and questions you might have if I brought any up.